that also brings me to questions on injuries, mate, because it wasn't all blue skies, was it?
No, well, I think if there was one moment in my, I guess, professional career as a sort of body worker and someone that conditions people, et cetera, I think it was an injury that almost took me out of athletics, where I basically wasn't able to run for almost a couple of years. And you were heavily involved in that, because I had a scholarship at the VIS, and I'd had multiple injections into my knee. It was a Pes Anserine inflammation and some other stuff going in, so that medial knee side. And I wasn't getting any better. I had surgery on it, and then I remember coming back to you and going, mate, I'm back to where I was. This is almost. I'm almost done. I don't think that I'm gonna. I just don't think I can run anymore. Like, this is just. And that was
I remember that time. I do. You were on the premises,
and you were the first person that I saw that looked at an injury and said, all right, you've got some medial knee pain. I'm not going to touch that. I'm going to go to the outside of your hip. And my mind just exploded. I'm like, no, mate, the pain's in the knee. What the F are you looking at the hip for? And this is obviously me, early days of what I know now. And that just completely opened my mind up to what the opportunities were for thinking differently and looking at the body a little bit differently, and not like everyone else does. And again, it was just the people around me that were asking those same questions that was helping me sort of get to that point where I was like, all right, there's another way to do this, and let's explore that.
And so how long was that process, Brendon?
How long, or how was that process?
Now, how long was that process?
Well, it was 2 years before I was, I think, back to being able to kind of run with confidence. And then that's pretty much been my biggest, touch wood, major injury. From actually athletics. I had another one later, but that was from wakeboarding. But as far as regular athletic injuries from doing what you're supposed to do, that was the biggest one. So what I learned from that experience, and from the knowledge that sort of I was able to, seek and get from people like you, it just completely changed the way that I thought about the body. And and since then, I basically haven't really had a significant injury.
Mate, and you've been kissed by God on that, because as you know, especially as a hurdler and any track and field athlete, you are just dodging overuse injuries all the time, especially overuse tendon injuries. They're a minefield. Throw in hamstring strains and all that sort of stuff. I mean, so touch wood, whatever we've got. I actually haven't got wood here, but you've been very, very lucky in that respect, I think. And then you're at that stage, and then so obviously you finished your studies and so forth. You were back competing and running and so forth, and then you got a scholarship to the AIS. Let's not skip that.
I did. That was a really hard-earned scholarship, because I moved...
Talk me through it, brother.
I moved from Melbourne to Canberra. I spoke to who became my main coach for the main part of my career, Matt Beckenham. He invited me up there and said, look, we've got this hurdling sort of hub up in Canberra. And this is back sort of early 2000s, when you've got Pat Johnson up there, Daniel Batman was up there. You had this incredible walks community up there. Some really good. Adam Miller was up there as well. So we had a really good hub of just very, very good athletes. And I was like, mate, that sounds great. I'll come up. And he said, I can't guarantee any support, but if you run fast enough, then you might get looked at for a scholarship. And back then, these scholarships were worth a huge amount of money. Like, it wasn't just you're going to get free treatment and a t-shirt. It was like you get a stipend and a meal. You get a stipend, you get free meals at the institute, you can get housing if you want it, any travel, any equipment, all looked after. So it was a really sought out sort of scholarship. And it took me, so I got there in 2004, and it took me 3 years and making a Commonwealth Games final to actually get looked at for a scholarship. And so I feel like I definitely earned that. And and then things sort of, I just got a little more access to make life a little bit easier, and carried that through towards the Olympics in 2012. So I had really good support for that period.
Yeah, and you would have thought, like, I'm sure there would have been plenty of athletes in that situation who just would have walked away in the end thinking this is just all too hard. especially if they get injuries and so forth, which just, you know, it brings a stop to their progress and all that sort of stuff. You just think, oh God, you know, it's just too hard. You know, I'll just walk away. It's easier, you know, at the end of the day. And do you know what I mean? There's always got to be that in the back of your mind. You know, you your conscience just thinking to you and talking to you about, oh, can I make it? You know, have I got the goods? Da da da. Do you know what I mean? Just that self doubt.
I think I was thrown off timeline wise because I think a lot of athletes do go through that exact process, whether it be a lack of performance or, you know, injuries that they haven't sort of been able to resolve. But I was really lucky because I didn't have a normal timeline. Like when I was 24, I was sort of just starting to make, you know, national teams and stuff like that.
Yep.
So I wasn't really following anyone else's instruction or timeline or anything. I was like, all right, look, let's just see what happens. And I think my motivation was different as well. I wasn't like a be all end all. Like I was doing it because I wanted to do it. I loved it.
Yeah. Yep.
And even if I didn't compete, I still, you know, I still be running. I still be sort of enjoying sort of athletics in some sort of, you know, context or capacity. But I think to the people around me and the fact that I was just in it, you know, I'd made that move to make the Olympics and to be the athlete that I thought that I could be. And especially being a therapist, I saw so many athletes going through much worse than I did.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, you were working as a softie at the same time, weren't you?
I was, yeah. I was working at the institute as well as having a scholarship there.
Yeah. Oh, there wouldn't have been many who've done that.
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. I'm not
Has
sure.
Anyone done that? Has any of the softies done that? No one would have been on scholarship and a therapist. Not that I can remember.
I think a lot of athletes would be doing one or the other, but probably not both. Yeah.
No. Well, there you go. Boom.
So I had exposure to all these athletes going through the same things that I was going through. And here I am sort of on the table saying, you know, listen, mate, let's follow the timeline. You've got really good people in your corner. We're going to follow the doctors' rehab program. You've got great physios with you. So I'm kind of talking to these athletes about their injuries. And I needed to have that self-talk for myself. So I think having it with other athletes allowed me to go, you know what, you know what to do, BJ. You know what it is that needs to be done and the mindset you need to have to be able to get through this.
Yeah.
And
what an insight. As, you know, obviously being an athlete and then being obviously a therapist at the same time. I mean, that's gold.
I was lucky. Yeah.
Yeah. You can say it's luck, but yeah, I mean, well, it's just, you know, just having the insight, you know, especially with your track and field athletes anyway. Like, I mean, you've got that, you know, you understand all the underpinning stuff that they go through that sometimes therapists don't, you know what I mean? And I know one of my favorite things to do